June 2001. I have one very specific memory of this time, and we'll get to it when it's appropriate. So let's jump right in to the first book that I read in June 2001, and that was Plastic Jesus by Poppy Z. Bright. And now for the memory. I was house sitting, or rather dog sitting, for some friends of mine while I was reading this book. I had a limited edition hardcover, and their dog chewed on the book. That's my one memory. I can still remember the layout of their apartment, and yeah, I had my nice limited edition, and the dog chewed on the corner of it. What are you gonna do? Plastic Jesus by Poppy Z. Bright. This is about sort of an alternate universe tale of the Beatles and John and Paul falling in love. Hold on, let me check my notes. I'm sorry, it's about a band called The Kids in the 60s from England. There's four members of the band, and Seth and Peyton fall in love. Essentially, it's the Beatles with the names changed, and because it really hits all the highlights of the Beatles' career as the highlights of the Kids' career, but basically instead of John and Yoko, Paul and Linda, Seth and Peyton fall in love with each other, and how that sort of changes the history without really changing the history. Really a fascinating book, a big departure from previous Poppy Z. Bright that I had read. I think a big departure from everything she'd written before that. I can't say. I don't know everything she'd written before that. But a very interesting book. It's well written. I'm a Beatles fan, so at least, fan of their music. I don't know them personally. But really a fascinating little book. I don't know if it's difficult to find, but there you go. Plastic Jesus, Poppy Z. Bright. Next up, I was still dog sitting while I read this, and I believe I'd already read it once. I believe the movie was on, and I watched the movie and decided to read it again. I think that's how things went. But anyway, it was Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Never know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Do I even need to tell you what Fight Club is about? There's a narrator. He meets a guy. They start a fight club. There's a big twist at the end. Spoilers? I really like this book. I'm a fan of the movie. Probably not for the reasons that a lot of people are. Apparently, there are a lot of people that take the wrong message from the movie. But I just think it's a well-written, interesting book with a crazy twist I didn't see coming. And, it led me to read other Chuck Palahniuk books. I haven't read, I've probably read less than half of what he's put out at this point. It's been a long time since I've read any of his stuff. I should go back and start reading his stuff again. There you go, Fight Club. Then we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer Revenant by Mel Odom. And in this one, takes place while they're still in high school, the Scooby Gang, and a Chinese family has emigrated from China. And oddly, at the same time, a new Chinese gang has moved into town, and there are Chinese demons. And Mel Odom, good writer, and it's a fun, interesting novel. Gets into Chinese mythology, which is one of the nice things, I think, in the Buffy series, or series like this, where an author can take different mythologies from around the world, supernatural stories from around the world, and put them in these settings with, characters we've come to love. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer Revenant. Buffy fighting Chinese demons and a Chinese gang. And Xander, once again, attracting a supernatural hot woman. All right. Followed that up with The Widening Gyre by Robert B. Parker, a Spencer book. And in this one, I've talked about it before because I've read this many times. A senator's wife, or a senator essentially, is being blackmailed because the senator's wife in her past had some problem with drugs and sex. And someone's got a videotape. And that someone wants to control the senator, actually keep him out of the race, I think. Make him drop out. Spencer's hired to fix things. It's a great book. I love almost all of the earliest, like, let's say the first 20. I haven't done an official count. Maybe first 15. This is one of the highlights. Love the Spencer books. Then we have Children of Hope by David Feintuck. This is the one Seafort Saga book that I do not have. I ordered a copy on Amazon, and it got lost in the mail. It was from a third-party seller, but I got my money back. I feel bad if the third-party seller sent the book and it just disappeared. They didn't get the book back. They didn't get my money. I feel bad about that, but I'm not going to pay for something I didn't get. Anyway, so I still haven't got a copy of this. But it's the 6th or 7th book in the Seafort saga. Nicholas Seafort. It's military sci-fi. But in this book, even though Seafort is still essentially the main character, it's actually narrated by a young man, a 14-year-old named Randy Carr. And he blames Nicholas Seafort for his father's death. He wants revenge. But there's all sorts of, again, military sci-fi twists and turns in the story. There's always the fish, who are the aliens that we've been dealing with, or we haven't. Nicholas Seafort has for quite some time. And it's I love these books. I'm not a huge military sci-fi fan. Got nothing against it. It's just with so much stuff to read, I can't read everything. But these books I really like, and I would like to reread the whole series. Maybe once I finally get a copy of this again. But that's Children of Hope by David Feintuck. Followed by Gunman's Rhapsody by Robert B. Parker. This is a Western. I can't remember if it's the first Western that he wrote off the top of my head. But essentially, it's Robert B. Parker retelling the story of the gunfight at the OK Corral with, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, all those folks. It's written in his typical style, so it's a very fast read, and I enjoyed it. Some people complained that, I think it was Doc Holliday, just seems like Spencer, which is a complaint that Robert B. Parker would sometimes get with the Sunny, whatever her name was, stories, that she was just a female version of Spencer. And some people said, well, Doc Holliday is just an old Western version of Spencer. But I enjoyed it. It's a fast-paced, quick, easy read. If you like Robert B. Parker's style and you're interested in reading a Western, Gunman's Rhapsody. Next up, The Sandman Companion by Hy Bender. This is a nonfiction book that when I looked it up on Amazon previous to recording this video, I immediately added it to my wish list to remind me to pick up a copy. This is exactly what it sounds like. The Sandman being the groundbreaking comic book series by Neil Gaiman and various artists, and about Morpheus, one of the headlining Vertigo titles, even though it was already going before Vertigo was created as an imprint. But The Sandman Companion, behind the scenes look. There's interviews, there's, I think, never before seen illustrations, possibly script. I'm almost certain there's script pages. Just all sorts of really fascinating behind the scenes stuff about the comic book series, The Sandman. I loved the series, and I love this kind of behind the scenes stuff, which is going to come up again on this list. But The Sandman Companion by High Bender, fantastic book. Again, added to my wish list. I'm going to pick up a copy again and reread it when I have the time because it's fantastic. Then we have Trace, When Elephants Forget by Warren Murphy, part of the Trace series. Devlin Tracy is an insurance investigator, freelance-ish. He basically works for the same company, but he can take or leave whatever assignments they give him. And this time he's being sent to New York. I like on the back it says they have sent him to Manhattan to check out a death in a family that made the mafia look like the Waltons. His girlfriend Chico has come along to keep an eye on him, and he's just investigating the death of this 22-year-old whose mother had a $500,000 life insurance policy on him. These are fun, fast-paced, quick-witted. Devlin's, one of those snappy dialogue kind of characters. If you like things like Spencer, Fletch, that kind of stuff, I like the Trace series. So Trace, When Elephants Forget by Warren Murphy. Then we have the penultimate book in June of 2001, Immortal Eyes Trilogy, Book 1, The Toy Box by Jackie Quesada. This is from White Wolf Publishing. It's a World of Darkness book that takes place, well, the World of Darkness, they're all the same world. It's a changeling book. I don't remember I go over this almost every time. You have Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, and it's changeling the something. I don't remember what that something is. But the Toy Box Cafe is a place where the changelings, who are like fairy people, the fae, Toy Box Cafe is a place where they can go and sort of slip from their human guise, be themselves. And but there's a wizard that's causing trouble, and so this disparate group of changelings have come together to try and stop this. Changeling, not one of my favorite World of Darkness things. Of course, Vampire and Werewolf are the big ones for me, and then Hunter, because it brought in the human characters. I liked that. Changeling, Wraith, and I feel like there's another one I'm forgetting. Weren't the biggest, but I like the whole World of Darkness setting. And if you like fairy type characters, then this would be the book for you to check out. And then finally, the last thing that I read in June of 2001 is this big honkin' hardback, Which Lie Did I Tell? More Adventures in the Screen Trade by William Goldman. William Goldman, excuse me, huge name as both a novelist. He wrote Marathon Man, The Princess Bride, Magic, all sorts of great books. And as a screenwriter, he wrote the screenplay for Misery, The Princess Bride, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I think the movie came before I think there's a novelization, but I think the movie was originally a screenplay. Just tons and tons of stuff. As a matter of fact, let's just look on the inside flap for a few more. Absolute Power is another one, apparently. But this is the follow-up to Adventures in the Screen Trade, where William Goldman sort of dishes about what goes on in Hollywood and talks about experiences on the sets of different movies. I think this is where I read about in Misery, he had written the screenplay with the hobbling scene as it is in the book Misery. Rob Reiner wanted it changed, and William Goldman didn't think that was a good idea. And then I think when he saw it on screen, he was like, "Oh yeah, you made the right choice. That's really good. Um, I think that's where I read about this for the first time. But aside from that, aside from this all sort of behind the scenes stuff, he's included an original screenplay that he wrote just for this book. And then he gave it to, let's see, where is it? Okay, yep, I know it's compelling to watch me flip through pages. Where is it? You know, I could just look in the. Basically, gave it to a bunch of people, Oscar winners and such. Um, and so we get to read the screenplay, and then we get to read the notes that he was given by these other directors. I know the Farrelly brothers are in here. I don't remember who else though. It's in here, and he has the letter that he sent to them before he sent it, or when he sent it. But anyway, so that was really fascinating. So you get to read the screenplay, and then you get to read what these other the notes. Here we go. Peter and Bobby Farrelly, Scott Frank, Tony Gilroy, Callie Corey, John Patrick Shanley. So you get to see what they have to say about this screenplay. As I said earlier, I love behind the scenes stuff. I'm a fan of William Goldman's books. I love Marathon Man. I think Brothers is the name of the sequel, which is not as good as Marathon Man, but still pretty good. Princess Bride, absolutely hilarious book and fantastic movie. You know, again, so he's written some great books, some great movies, and I really, really like this kind of stuff. I don't have a copy of the first book at the moment. I have read it, but really fascinating stuff, especially if you're interested in Hollywood and some behind the scenes stuff from a great writer. And that's it. That's everything that I read in June of 2001. I did not think of a question ahead of time. So, how about this? What with Which Lie Did I Tell and The Sandman Companion, what pop culture thing, so it could be a movie, a TV series, a book, or a book series, what pop culture thing would you most be interested in reading a behind the scenes book about? I don't know if that's the best way to structure that sentence, but that's how it came out. So people who have watched this channel for a while, if you've watched most of my videos, you've seen on this list a lot of behind the scenes stuff. You've seen me review some behind the scenes stuff. Most recently, I think the most recent behind the scenes one was Secrets of the Force, which was about Star Wars. But I've got a book about the making of Dog Soldiers by Janine Pipe. Absolutely fantastic book if you're a Dog Soldiers fan. One that I haven't read yet is You've Got Red on You, which is about the making of Shaun of the Dead. And so I have a bunch of books like that. And there's tons out there. So off the top of my head, what I'm trying to think of like a comic book thing. Interestingly enough, to me anyway, not that interested in behind the scenes stuff about like the Marvel movies. I don't know why. And I think there's stuff out there. I'm just not that interested in that. Maybe because I'm I don't know if being a comic book fan has anything to do with that, because I know the comic stuff and I don't care how the movies were made. Maybe because they're just big blockbuster movies that I've enjoyed most of the ones I've seen. I do think there are some that are kind of down here as opposed to the ones that are way up here. But I don't need to know what went into making them. They're big blockbuster movies. And you might say, well, so are Star Wars, but that's not how they started. So Huh. Again, I never think ahead. Maybe Alien. I just happen to be looking over at my Aliens novels. Maybe the original Alien or Alien and Aliens. Maybe put those two together, since that started out relatively small. Relatively, I say. Um, Maybe something about horror characters in Marvel Comics. Sort of, there was a boom with horror characters in the 70s. And I was trying to think of, I was going to say with like one specific character, but I don't know that that's enough to fill a book. So just sort of the horror characters and how that boom came about and how they developed Ghost Rider and Werewolf by Night and Tomb of Dracula and Blade and Man Thing and um, there was another one, Morbius. That would interest me because I love those characters. I love that darker side of the Marvel universe, and I think it would be interesting to read a book about that. There's my answer. But what about you? What movie, TV series, book series, whatever would you be interested in reading a behind the scenes book about? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And if you're on Blue Sky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I've got for you this week, so until next week, read more books.